Hello. We are going to teach you all about the life of Ulysses S. Grant.
Ulysses S. Grant was born in Point Pleasant, Ohio, April 27, 1822. In 1839, he received a recommendation to West Point from Congressman Thomas Hammer. He was good at math and drawing, but his prior education was limited. One of his many talents was his amazing writing abilities.
After graduating from West Point, he had service in the Mexican War. He was mainly quartermaster general, but occasionally served as company commander. He was assigned to duty on the West Coast, but the isolation caused him to be lonely and drink. In 1854, he resigned from his commission and went back to his wife, Julia Grant. When the Civil War began, he decided to volunteer for the Union. His first major battle as a general was capturing Forts Henry and Donelson. In 1861, the Confederates built Fort Henry on the Tennessee River to block Union movement. In 1862, Grant campaigned to capture the fort. Grant moved south onto the river. He closed off all routes of escape from the fort. When they started to attack, the Confederates fled to Fort Donelson. They surrendered Fort Henry, and it opened up the river to the Union and made a base for Fort Donelson. While Grant's troops battled on the land, Andrew Hull Foote's ironclad gunboats invaded the river. After successfully capturing Fort Henry, Grant and Foote moved to Fort Donelson. Grant built up his forces on land to contain the Confederates. The gunboats got the worst of the battle. Foote got injured and a council of war was called. On February 14th, Grant and Foote were conferring. The Confederates tried to create an escape, but Grant rallied his forces and forced them to surrender. When the Confederates asked for their terms of surrender, Grant said no terms except unconditional surrender. This battle was the first major Union victory.
Later in 1862, Grant and General William T. Sherman attacked Confederate of equal numbers. This was known as the Battle of Shiloh. The battle took place in southwestern Tennessee. For 6 months, Union troops had been working their way up the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. The Confederates' main goal was to destroy the Union Western offense in one massive attack. After the Unions were aware of the Confederate attack, they sounded and readied for battle. Grant drove Confederates back to the road from Corinth, not capturing Beauregard's army, but stabilized the Army of Tennessee. Beauregard launched many surprise attacks that were beaten back throughout the morning of April 7th. Beauregard realized that he could not win, having suffered from too many casualties, so he fled the field and headed back to Corinth. This was a major victory for the Union because it ended Southern control of the Mississippi Valley. This was the bloodiest battle of the war up until Gettysburg, with 25,000 casualties.
On May 16th through July 4th, 1863, Grant led Union troops in the Battle of Vicksburg. The battle took place in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Vicksburg was the Confederacy's most important fort in the West. It was the only fort left on the Mississippi River that the North hadn't taken. The Union needed Vicksburg to win the war in the West, but it was defended by 30,000 Confederates, and engineers worked to make the city harder to attack. Grant decided to take the city by storm since he outnumbered them. He ordered Major General William T. Sherman to attack the defenses. Grant attempted a frontal assault to break through the Confederates. His artillery and gunboats attacked a section, but it wasn't successful, and they had 32,000 casualties. Grant then realized that only a prolonged siege would get them to surrender. They cut off the city's rivers and landward movement. By the end of June, they decided to surrender because of the lack of food and constant danger. They agreed to modified terms and handed over the city on Independence Day. This battle was one of the major turning points in the Civil War. This victory gave the Union full control of the Mississippi River.
His final battle of the Civil War was the Battle of Wilderness in 1864. The battle took place between Orange and Spotsylvania County in Virginia. Ulysses was promoted to lieutenant general, given full command of all Union armies. He knew his key to victory was to defeat Robert E. Lee in the Potomac. The Federal Army wished to avoid fighting in the densely overgrown area of the wilderness, but on May 5th they met in combat. The Federal Army attacked along the northern road while the Confederates held their positions. Lee himself attempted to lead a charge across open ground and many simultaneous attacks at night, but they were turned back. Both armies had about 18,000 casualties over the span of 2 days. The Army of Potomac would have pulled out of the campaign, but Grant ordered his entire army on the march in a sliding movement to the left, hoping to flank and then attack Lee again. The Federal southward march on May 6th
marked a crucial turning point in the Civil War. Ulysses helped change the way of fighting after the Civil War. His strategies included seeking the better ground, massing forces, and fighting until the opposing side gave up. Grant was what the North needed in the Civil War. He won important battles like the Shiloh, captured Vicksburg, and isolated Lee's army until they surrendered. We hope you enjoyed learning about Ulysses S. Grant!